Hey, what's going on everybody? Justin here, and in this video I just want to share my pile of possibilities for quarter 4 of Historathon. For those who don't know what that is, it's a history-based reading event that takes place over the entire year, and it's broken into different quarters focusing on different time periods. And quarter 4 from October through the end of the year is all about modern history from 1820 to the current day. And I'm definitely going to leave a link to Ben's announcement video down below so you can check it out. He's the creator of Historathon, and there's a whole slew of co-hosts, and I'm pleased to say that I've been promoted in the bookish community to be a co-host for Historathon, so that's pretty cool. But anyways, we're going to get right into it because I think I got 13 or 14 books here. I'm just going to briefly talk about each one. Probably won't get to them all. Maybe if I get to like 5 or 6 of them, I'll be pleased over like the 3 months. But these 13 books, I think, are about 80% of all the books I could even fit from 1820 to the modern, to today, that I haven't already read. So yeah, it's definitely one of my weaker ones, because as you can see, this is all, I think, all ancient history till about like here, then we got like medieval history and stuff. But anyways, let's just get right into it. So I do have a lot of World War I titles. That is like a focus area that I've just kind of always read a little bit about. And we got Secret Warriors, The Spies, Scientists, and Codebreakers of World War I by Taylor Downey. And I feel like this one will fit really good with my kind of like science reading challenge that I'm doing. So this is all about kind of like the kind of behind the scenes technical like professions, if that's probably the right, I don't know if that's really the right way to put it, technical positions that occurred, you know, during the Great War. So there is like a lot of chemical, you know, that's the war where chemical warfare really is kind of like at its high point, like kind of infamously, with like the mustard gas and everything like that. There was a lot of code breakers. I know, you know, this is kind of like the age where U-boats are starting to be a thing, but there's also just a lot of like espionage, radar starting to come into form, stuff like that. So I think there's a lot of like technological advances, you know, there's a lot of just, you know, double agents and kind of just, like I said, kind of wheelings and dealings behind the scenes. So I think it'll be kind of an interesting counterpoint to a lot of the like books that you read about like trench warfare and like the Western and Eastern fronts and stuff like that. Next up is a Teddy Roosevelt book, and I have like a mini collection of Theodore Roosevelt titles, but this one's kind of special for me. I've like glossed over this one like a million times. Like for whatever reason, I forgot I even had it till I like went looking for quarter 4 books. But we got Becoming Teddy Roosevelt: How a Maine Guide Inspired America's 26th President by Andrew Vitze. And one of the cool things where I live in the middle of the woods in northern Maine is a lot of people, like, I mean, I shouldn't say a lot of people, a few important people have actually, you know, made their way through, like, the North Maine woods and Katahdin and all that kind of stuff. You know, for example, like, Thoreau has a book on Katahdin in the North Woods and stuff. But I just want to read the little blurb on the back, just so you can kind of get a picture. Today we think of Theodore Roosevelt as a larger-than-life figure, but before he became a legendary outdoorsman, Badlands rancher, rough rider, trust buster, and political maverick, he was a thin, pale youngster with bad eyes and a weak heart, in the words of William Wingate Sewell, the upcountry Maine woodsman who would become Roosevelt's mentor and lifelong friend. Two met at a crucial time in Roosevelt's life, and Sewell exerted a quiet but profound influence on the man who would become America's 26th president. So it's kind of like a Theodore Roosevelt, but also like a local history book for me, so I think that's really cool. I've read about some of these encounters. That's going to be like the main thrust of this book, in the Edmund Morris book, The Rise of Theodore Roosevelt, right there. And actually I have I'll mention it right now. The third book in that trilogy, Theodore Rex, is the middle one. Colonel Roosevelt by Edmund Morris. I have read the first 2, and these are like a trilogy of biographies on Theodore Roosevelt. The first one deals up to from his birth to when he becomes president. The second book is all about his terms of presidency, and this one is going to be all about pretty much his life post presidency. So I think that'll be interesting. You know, this is like when he runs for a 3rd term, because you could kind of do that back then as part of the Bull Moose Party. You know, maybe he got, you know, the Bull Moose idea from northern Maine there, and stuff like that, as well as like some of his like African safari adventures, and let's see, also like his kind of infamous trip down the in like Brazil. Why can't I think of the Amazon River? I don't know why I can't think of the word Amazon and stuff. But anyways, like I said, very highly readable, super well regarded. I haven't seen anyone like really like not like them. If you like biographies and stuff, definitely check them out. Next up is a book Revolutionary Spring that I'm going to be doing as a buddy read with a bunch of us over on the Historathon Discord. We've decided on this one for like a Q4 buddy read, and it's Revolutionary Spring, Europe Aflame and the Fight for a New World, 1848 to 1849, by Christopher Clark. And I was sent this by Crown Publishing, so thank you so much to them for that. And he is an author I really should read more of. He's got a great book called The Sleepwalkers, all about the kind of the entrance into World War I, that I haven't read yet, but that one's super highly regarded, and that's why his like name was kind of on my radar. But this is all about kind of like the uprising of the peoples in the years 1848 to 49. Tons of different countries were involved. You had, France, some of the German countries, Italy, Denmark, Ireland, Portugal, I think. I think it's the biggest uprising, like people's revolts and stuff ever, and they were all sort of ad hoc. It wasn't like some grand unified thing. So I think that's going to be pretty interesting, and this is kind of like the rise of like the Second French Empire, after, like, kind of in the aftermath of this stuff. So yeah, I just think it'd be pretty interesting. What did I read? Pursuit of Power, which was a monster of a book. It made me kind of interested a little bit more in the 1800s. So yeah, I'm going to be definitely kind of interested to just do a deep dive on a really kind of like specific time period during the 1800s. And I'm going to move some of those on the floor because I think that's just going to pile up like crazy. So we also have The History of Philosophy by A.C. Grayling. I've been trying to read a lot more philosophy this year, and this technically obviously covers the entire history of philosophy, but by the time we get to 1820, I think it was like on page like 270 or something, if I remember off the top of my head. Let's see. Philosophy in the 19th Century starts on page 279, and it's like a 600-page book or something like that. So I figured, about half of the book kind of counts for Q4. But I've talked about this one a little bit before. This is apparently like the go-to book if you want to kind of just a comprehensive overview of philosophy, for like a modern copy. So it's gonna be good. I'm pretty sure. He's also pretty well regarded as a philosopher himself, so he's gonna be able to, like, I think, talk about the different philosophical concepts and like kind of what was going on and what was changing and different currents of thought and stuff really well. There's a lot of the history of philosophies that I've read, like the philosophy wasn't so much the primary purpose per se. Like they were more like just pure, just kind of I guess surveys of history and like kind of just philosophical ideas throughout time without really going into depth of like the ideas themselves. So I think this will be a good blend of both of those things. Next up, we have Thoreau's Acts, Distraction and Discipline in American Culture by Caleb Smith. I thought this one was just really interesting. It's a bunch of primary sources mostly from the 1800s, as well as like some commentary on them about how contemporary culture during that time in the 19th century was just really bad, and like kind of with like the subtitle there, Distraction and Discipline, how people were slacking off and getting distracted with all like, the technological advancements and different stuff going on, different cultural events. And it's just, I don't know, I just thought it was interesting because if people were saying things like that, it's like kind of the joke where no one wants to work anymore or whatever, and like everyone's been saying that, like every generation essentially just says that every like 10 or 15 years. It's like the same idea, but with like, I'm trying to picture like all these people knowing nowadays with like computers and smartphones and how much we kind of just are so self-absorbed with stuff like that. I just think it'll be like really interesting, and it's going to be kind of like a culture shock reading about what they thought in the 1900s was just like so like immoral of character and like just like like slothful and stuff like that. So next up is another one. I was sent this one from WW Norton and Company. It's The Great River by Boyce Upholt, The Making and Unmaking of the Mississippi. I think this is going to be a really good blend of natural history and science of the Mississippi River, the Mississippi watershed. But a lot of it, as I was flipping through it, is definitely on kind of the cultural impact, the human kind of factor of the Mississippi River, such as how it's been used for transportation, used for economic resources like fishing and everything, as well as shipping, stuff like that. So I think it's going to be kind of an interesting, like I said, it's going to be like a kind of blend of natural history and regular history. So I think that usually goes pretty well from everything that I read. I think nature books in general are just really they just do a really good, they're just apt to kind of blend with other genres. So I feel like this is going to be one of those ones where it's just like real, I shouldn't say real history, like, you know, pure history and natural history kind of blending together to make a cool book. All right, then we have two. I went looking on my shelves over there, which I don't think I've ever, or I haven't shown them in like years if I have. I have a little bit of local history, so I figured I might as well take a couple of those. And I got It Happened in Maine by Gail Underwood Parker. Fascinating stories about 24 events that helped make Maine what it is today, including little-known episodes that shaped the Pine Tree State's colorful history. So yeah, I really enjoy reading about Maine. Like I said, I have a little local history kind of thing. I like Maine. I think I probably talked about that a ton. Like all my videos, like I always kind of mention that. But yeah, I think it's going to just have a bunch of little vignettes. I'm hoping there's a bunch that I haven't read before. But for example, just like, you know, the northern border of Maine, and between Maine and like New Brunswick and Quebec, there was almost a giant war fought over it. But it's kind of, it's known as the Bloodless War, as well as the Pork and Beans War. And nothing like actually ended up happening. But there almost was, like kind of like in my backyard. So I think that's kind of interesting. And then it's kind of history. We got Maine Beer Brewing in a Vacation Land by Josh Christie. And I do like craft beer too. Me and my friend Tim, he's been on a few of my videos. He's like a craft beer enthusiast, and I kind of go along for the ride. But it's just a history of all the like major breweries in Maine, so I kind of think I should do like a road trip and just try to like visit all of them. But there's a whole bunch I've been to or I've tasted before, so I think it's just gonna be kind of interesting, like reading their like little vignettes on how they got started and whatnot. Next up is Walter Isaacson's Einstein, His Life and Universe. Walter Isaacson is pretty famous for his biographies. I think he's the one who did Elon Musk's like big one like right now. But he's got quite a few of them, and I felt this one would go really good with my science reading. I think next month in October is going to be like kind of the physics, astronomy kind of themed month, and I think this one would be just kind of really good, a good pairing with that while I'm reading about some physics stuff, reading about Einstein as well. So I actually don't really know too much about him. I don't really understand. I guess I've never really read anything about like kind of the context of like his life or anything like that, other than like essentially emigrating out of, you know, Nazi Germany and stuff, like kind of when he saw the writing on the wall. So other than that, I don't really know like tons about him per se. So I think it was just kind of interesting to fill in a lot of those gaps. Dun, 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 dun. All right, now we got 3 more World War I books apparently. So first up, we got World War I by Edward Pace, The African Front, an Imperial War on the African Continent. And I don't know too much about this book other than it's all about kind of like the conflict and skirmishes and battles and stuff that took place in Africa during World War I. And that's something I don't know too much about. I've read several World War I books, but yeah, the African Front gets glossed over quite quickly. And especially compared to like World War II, where you have a lot of kind of the Arrow and Rommel stuff and like Operation Torch and everything. There's quite a bit on like the African Front, but I feel like in World War I, since it wasn't like quite as important or prominent per se, it just gets glossed over a lot. But I have a feeling it probably actually is fairly important. There actually was comprehensive things sort of going on there that actually made an impact on like the Western and Eastern fronts. So like that's why I picked this one up, is just kind of to fill in the context, and I haven't gotten around to it, but we shall get to it at some point, hopefully this year. Okay, and next up we got A Mad Catastrophe, The Outbreak of World War I and the Collapse of the Habsburg Empire by Geoffrey Warrow. And I've read several books on the outbreak of World War I, books on kind of like the context or the events leading up to it and that sort of thing. But the reason I wanted to go with this one when I picked it up was that it kind of focuses more on the Austro-Hungarian side of things, the German and Austro-Hungarian side of things. I know, and I think a lot of us know, it goes a lot more beyond than just the assassination of, the Archduke Ferdinand. There's just a lot going on behind the scenes, and I kind of want to read more about kind of the ineptitude, I guess, of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. In World War I, there's always like that. There was that saying that they were basically like a corpse that Germany was just like attached to a corpse effectively, because they were just not that effective really in World War I. So I think it's gonna have a lot to deal with kind of that side of things, and I haven't read tons on it. So yeah, just like I said, filling in more gaps in my knowledge. And then lastly, and I think this one actually might pair well with that first one I mentioned, these Secret Warriors one, we got Hellfire Boys by Theo Emery, and it's the birth of the U.S. Chemical Warfare Service and the race for the world's deadliest weapons. So as it says on the tin there, it's all about kind of the chemical warfare and that sort of side of things. But from the American side, which I actually haven't read hardly anything about, I don't know anything about, like, I guess, like, American involvement in, like, the chemical warfare stuff. But I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of, like, kind of, like, what you call it, behind the door kind of stuff going on. It's a pretty big book too, so I'm not 100% sure what I'm getting myself into, but I have a feeling a lot's going to be dealing too with sort of the aftermath of kind of like creating, you know, like a chemical warfare department and stuff, and how that probably leads on beyond the ending of World War I. And like I said, that's something else I haven't really read about, so yeah, filling in more gaps in my knowledge base. But there you have it. Those are, I think, 13 to 14 Q4 modern history titles that you might be interested in. Let me know what you're reading for Historathon Q4. I'm always on the lookout for really good recommendations. I'll be doing my, I guess, my recommendations video for books that I've already finished on this kind of category, this time period. So be on the lookout for that if modern history is your thing. But whether it is or not, always remember, read victoriously.